Hi, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. And today I'm reviewing Merchant's Cove, a game by Final Frontier Games, a game that is talked about as a highly asymmetric experience, a game talked about in dens of rogues and villains, and by that, of course, I mean Facebook. What else would I be talking about? But Merchant's Cove is a game that was on Kickstarter quite a while ago is a relative term, and it's recently landing, and people are excited about this game. People have been talking, there's hype, there's buzz, there are people that are going to compare this to Root. Inevitably, I guarantee people will compare it to Root because I'm going to compare it to Root, so that's how you know people are going to for sure compare this to Root. But that's because this is a highly asymmetric experience, or at least it claims to be, which means comparisons to other asymmetric games is a much smaller pool of, well, games to compare it to. But Merchant's Cove is a very different game than Root. I may well do a play this, not that, comparing the two at some point, but today I'm going to focus more on Merchant's Cove and less, just a little bit less, on Root. And Merchant's Cove effectively has two games going on simultaneously. You're going to have the center board, in which there's a few different facets of how this thing operates, of what you're trying to do, and then past that, every player simply has their own unique faction with their own way that that faction generates widgets. Now, each faction operates completely independently of the other, which does mean that while I love Merchant's Cove, and spoilers to the review part, but while I am really truly enjoying this game, I do think that there will be people out there who thought it was one thing who will be disappointed by it. I could be wrong. Maybe you all know exactly what it is. But I think that there will be people who expected an asymmetry that actually interweaves with one another, where the symmetry matters more, where the asymmetry matters more, and in this game, it doesn't matter at all. Every faction operates completely independently of one another. There could be 4 blacksmiths in the game, no different than there would be 4, but the blacksmith, the chronomancer, the alchemist, and the captain. It doesn't really matter. All that matters is that you do your job and you produce the necessary widgets in order to satisfy the customers. It does not matter whether Jim's over there playing whatever faction or whether Janet's over there playing whatever faction. No one cares at all. The only thing that matters is that you play your faction and you play it well. Contrasted with Root, and I'll try to make this the last time I bring up Root, where in Root, you have to know what everyone else is doing. You have to know how the various factions operate within that game if you want to have a chance of survival. It actually matters. Now, on the plus side, that does make Merchant's Cove significantly more accessible. It means that you can teach people the core game, and it's pretty simple in terms of what it's trying to do here, and then you can teach them their individual faction and how that operates, and they are good to go. They do not need to know the rules for 4 different factions, making the barrier to entry to this game significantly less. And we'll come back to all the what I liked, didn't like, final thoughts and all that, but that should give you enough of a framework of where I am on this game, and we're going to jump into the overview of how it plays. And the way it plays is ultimately Merchant's Cove is a game that's going to play over 3 rounds. In each of the rounds, you're going to spend time units to move around the board, taking different actions on your individual player boards, and minorly interfacing with this main board. I say minorly because every single faction is going to have an ability where you can recruit over here. Let's see over here. Every faction is going to have an ability where you can recruit various characters from the center board over here. That's going to be the first way you interweave there. And secondly is whenever your time token passes one of these meeples, you're going to reach into the bag and you're going to grab a meeple and then choose which boat to put it in. Ooh, a blue meeple. I'm going to go ahead and put that in this boat. Meanwhile, Jack over there goes ahead and grabs another meeple and on his turn puts it in this boat. And as soon as he does so, that boat will dock. As soon as a boat is full, it will dock and the person who filled it up gets to choose where it's going to go. And Jack is going to put it down over there, making the potential sale of blue goods very valuable this round at the black market. And that's ultimately what you're doing on the main board. Now, as the boats slowly, surely, but fill up and whatnot, let's pretend that there's some more meeples in them. Let's just toss some meeples in there. What's going to happen is the meeples who show up are effectively customers, and those customers are determining the price of various goods in the game when you get to the sale phase. That's what's happening. And the rest of the boats are going to retreat, and the various people are going to go to their respective rogues' dens, like so. So we're going to dump some people into their, not rogues' dens, their specific faction dens or whatnot, and that's where we have the sale state of the board. You're going to keep on taking actions until that happens, until the docks are full, at which point the marker token will set, and then once all the players pass the marker token, running out of time, they get to go ahead and sell their goods to the various customers. That is the whole aspect of the center board of Merchant's Cove. There are some other aspects I'm not overly getting into, but that is the primary aspect of what's going on. Now, meanwhile, we'll come back to the center board shortly. Meanwhile, in your own individual factions, you're going to be running your own specific engine, and I'll come back to each of them one at a time. You're going to be running your own individual engine in order to produce goods to sell to the customers. Now, thematically, you all have different goods. The blacksmith has weapons, the alchemist has potions, whatever they are. But as far as the game aspects, as far as the game mechanics go, the only thing that matters is that one person selling a large blue good or a small blue good. The color and size of the good matters. The thematic tie-in does not matter at all. And that matters because you're going to come to these docks with the goods that you've generated throughout the round, and you're going to try to find customers to sell them to. And you're going to multiply the value of the good by the number of customers of that type. So perhaps you go to this dock over here and you're selling goods. Well, whoever has the most red goods is going to get the highest sale there, because you'll turn around, you'll sell your red good, whether it's worth, let's say, 6 money. You'll multiply that 6 by the 2 customers. You're going to have 12 money for each red good. If you've made 2, 3 large red goods, you can get 12, 24, 36 money, 36 gold from a single sale over there. Or perhaps you were a little bit better planned out in your actions, and you sat there and you looked at the board and you planned around those ships and you made blue goods going to the black market. Sure, you'll take a corruption card, a small price to pay later, but ultimately you'll be able to sell your blue goods, which are more valuable to begin with, but also at a multiplier of 3 because there's 3 customers purchasing those blue goods. So we have the large goods stock, the small goods stock, and then the black market where you can buy anything, but you do have to give up that, you have to take a corruption card along the way, which will be worth negative points at the end of the game. That's going to be the entire game of Merchant's Cove. Finagle with the customers, manage the boats, try to figure out how to make sure the boats dock at which point in which way to try to structure the sale of your goods more efficiently than any other player. Manage the acquisition of a few staff members as they come to your staff board. We'll be able to earn additional actions from your staff board, and then past that it comes down to managing your individual player board. So let's go through those. Let's go through the various factions or the powers of what's going on here. We're going to have the blacksmith. The blacksmith is ultimately playing a dice game. They're going to have dice, which they go into the forges. They're going to be rolling dice, assigning them to forges to create the goods. They're going to be managing the acquisition of new dice down here. And then with their player board, with their side thing, they're going to manage the furnaces themselves. That's primarily what you're doing with the blacksmith. Rolling dice, assign them to furnaces, using them to create goods as so. The chronomancer is going to be involved with the finagling and the manipulation of time. As you move through the board with your assistant and your chronomancer, your assistant always leads the way. You have to balance that with what you're trying to do. But then you're going to earn time units and then cash those time units in later to get what you want out of the game. So you are managing the balance of time as you travel through history and get artifacts. And on their staff board, they have a lot of abilities to turn goods into what they want. Turning small goods into large goods, turning other goods into other goods of different colors, so they can ensure that they have the right goods to sell to the market as needed. From there, you're going to have the alchemist. The alchemist is going to have a bunch of potions, a bunch of marbles, effectively. Think potion explosion. They're going to have a little dial over here, and they're going to take different potions, different marbles, explode their potions, so to speak, to get as many marbles as possible, loading them into their cauldrons, and brewing potions which represent the goods that they'll be selling. There's a few other aspects, such as managing the eker of the potions, managing the wild stuff and whatnot, in order to ensure your potions do not explode, or your cauldrons do not explode, but managing that puzzle well is how you play the alchemist. And finally, there's the captain. The captain is going to be managing a fleet of boats over there on their own little island, sending their boats out to fish for small goods, or to send them out to various islands a little further out. They have to work a little harder, but in return, they'll get large goods instead. And all the while, you're managing your coins, your forbidden coins or corruption coins or whatnot, in order to get a little more out of your engine, but also you have to ensure that you take care of those coins and pay them back, or ultimately you'll end up taking more and more corruption. And that's Merchant's Cove. That's all there is to it. This game is fairly simple, all things considered. Now, I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, this game is lighter than I thought it was. It is less asymmetric than I thought it was. Not in the literal definition of the word. The literal definition of the word, of course, is asymmetric. Every time you play this game, well, at least up until the first 7 plays, you will play a totally different game because you're managing a different puzzle along with this core game. But past those 7 plays, or even the first play, they don't interweave with one another. They don't actually matter in terms of how one faction operates versus another faction. All that matters is that you play your little mini game better than the other players play their little mini games. And then the game, like I said already, is on the lighter side. It's less because of that aspect. Because you have these light little puzzles combined with a light little puzzle, you effectively have a lighter degree of the gameplay than I otherwise expected. Not a bad game. I said this already, and I meant it when I say I am really enjoying Merchant's Cove. And I am enjoying the puzzle it presents. I'm enjoying the everything. Well, let's get into what I like about the game. So to begin with, the art and components are top notch. The art is the Micho, and the components, they have these wonderful little boats. They have these market stands for all the various customers. Everyone has their own little stand where they can mount their goods. Everything in the game looks beautiful, feels well. This is a well-produced board game. The art, the components, and everything. And and some of the expansions have little beds that you can make. Adorable stuff across the board. Screen printed meeples. Everything is top notch. what do they call it? 2 double-layered boards, everything. Absolutely everything across the board is excellent in the art and components department. The Scrooge in this game is fairly rewarding. The Scrooge meaning you're going to be managing these boats over here at sea and watching, knowing full well that, well, I can sit there and dock that boat with the blue customers to go over there, and that will help me. But on the other hand, I see that Bob over there, he already has 2 large blue goods. So sure, it'll help me. But it'll help me more, it'll hurt him more if I dock these over here at the small dock instead and just deal with whatever happens later. There's a healthy degree of Scrooge in this game and the manipulation of the customers. I said that the various factions and their boards don't interweave at all, and that's true. But you do work with each other in terms of the board state over here. You are trying to figure out not just which customers help you the most, but also ensuring that you're not helping someone else along the way. You need to balance who's winning or just who has the most goods of a color while you figure out who and where to dock those boats, even if that means docking rogues at a boat and ensuring no sale whatsoever. So there's a healthy dose of Scrooge and manipulation of the customers as they come out of the bag into the boats and where they actually dock. The playtime of this game is incredibly good for the game experience. This game plays in roughly 90 minutes. I mean, the box says 60 to 90 minutes. We found it to be around 90, but perhaps that'll change the more we play. But 90 minutes for the experience this game gives you is incredibly solid. This is not a long game. This is a game where you jump in, you go through 3 rounds, produce your goods, weave your engine, manipulate what you need to do on your specific board, and then jump out. It is a solid game for the 90-minute playtime. And then different player abilities. I might have a problem with the lack of the type of asymmetry I expected, but at the same time, every single player has their own board. Every single game for the first 7 games, assuming you try to mix up the factions, you do, which I certainly am, then every single game in those first 7 games are going to be different. Sure, I'll play as the captain, and then I don't feel the need to play as the captain next time, so I'm going to jump straight in as the alchemist, and I'll play the alchemist's game, and then I'll play the chronomancer's game, and then I'll play the blacksmith's game, and then I'll head on over to the expansions, and I'll play as the dragon rancher, and I don't remember them all, the oracle, and the innkeeper. Yeah, those are going to be the 3 expansions. So the first 7 plays of this game, you will genuinely be experiencing 7 different gameplay experiences, which is great because, I don't know about you, but 7 games of a game is already a pretty decent number. And then from there, when you're done with your 7 plays, it's been a while, so you can hop on back to the alchemist, to the captain, to the whatever, trying to min-max or optimize your engine a bit more. As far as what I don't like about the game, I mean, first of all, there's the expectations aspect, which is, and that's on me. I'll take full mea culpa on me. I expected a different game than what Merchant's Cove was. I thought it was a heavier experience. I thought the asymmetry was going to be interwoven. Now, I am very happy with the game it actually is. The game it actually is incredibly easy to table. In hindsight, I don't know what I necessarily prefer, but while my expectations were not met, the game I'm actually getting is one that I will play a decent amount because of how accessible this game was. But I do find myself wishing there was more interplay between the factions, even if you can't do the factions to factions, because that would introduce that barrier to entry where other players would now have to learn multiple factions before they play the game. I wish there was more interplay between the factions and the main board, because all that really matters with the faction is that you're going to get staff. Every faction has a way to get staff, which is great. And then past that, it just matters how many widgets you produce of what type and color. That's all that really matters. You're running your own little engine. I could see more room for manipulation of the various characters in their specific faction houses, manipulation of the boats. If the boards gave you a little bit more ways to interplay, to interweave with the main board, then it would still give you that accessibility, but also feel like I have more choice, more direction, more, there's a word for it, more agency in terms of how I'm trying to run my engine. Because right now, it's primarily an engine of just produce more widgets and better widgets than the other players. But secondly, the mini-puzzles, and this part we haven't touched upon as well. While overall the game weight I enjoy, the individual mini-puzzles of this game I have so far found to be okay. Definitely a little lighter than I would otherwise like. Now don't get me wrong, I am enjoying them, but I can't see myself ever wanting to play 2 of these factions back to back. Meaning, if I play the blacksmith today, I am not playing the blacksmith the next time I play. Because the factions, there's a little bit of optimization around how you're going to try to choose your engine or whatnot. Sure, I played the blacksmith and I realized, you know what, maybe next time I'll go a little differently on the high goods, maybe next time I'll manipulate my furnaces a bit more. There are choices to be made. I'm not saying there's no agency whatsoever. But it's not enough agency for where I want out of the game that I would ever play the blacksmith 2 games in a row. Now, playing it again on game 8 when it's been, 2 months and I've forgotten about exactly what I did last time, that's a different story. But this is a game where, speaking for myself, the degree of weight, the degree of difficulty, complexity that each engine gives you hasn't been enough that I don't see myself ever playing the two factions back to back in this game. And then lastly, a little bit of a nitpick is the corruption cards try to be more interesting than I think they are. What I mean by that is corruption cards, when you take them, represent a loss of points. Those points are primarily going to come from how many rogues are in the rogues den at the end of the game, and you'll either get one of two symbols. You either get a simple, you get to lose points equal to the number of rogues, or you lose points equal to the number of rogues, but you gain a point equal to the number of, let's say, red in this point, but you lose twice the number of rogues. So they have these corruption cards that, in theory, give you different ways of managing it, and that will matter as you get rid of corruption cards throughout the game, but I didn't feel that it actually mattered that much. I would just rather have just given you that one simple card, and every time you have this card, you lose points equal to the number of rogues. The manipulation of the various types just didn't seem to matter that much in this game. As far as what I can see other people not liking, there are going to be degrees of luck in most of the factions. Not necessarily all. The Chronomancer in particular seems to have the most degree of pure agency without any luck. But for instance, the Blacksmith is going to roll dice. Rolling dice might make it so that you get exactly what you want. It might mean you have to manipulate a little bit more. The Chronomancer, like I said, is mostly luck. That's mostly not luck. The Potion Master, the Alchemist, is going to matter in terms of how the various marbles fall down the chute, is definitely going to be a factor in terms of what happens there. And then the Captain is going to have which treasures show up in their various docks. Past that, there's going to be luck in terms of the way the various people, the customers, get pulled from the bag. So there definitely is luck in this experience that can cater or adjust towards what somebody else was doing. Someone who was making blue potions and then just blue customers gets pulled more, that might result in someone else winning, not through better play, but through a degree of luck. Now, I don't mind luck in games, and I don't think it's an overwhelming amount of luck, so it doesn't bother me, but it's certainly a facet worth mentioning. And then secondly is, like I said already, and this is a big one, I think that if you wanted, for myself, I'm happy with the game. I am happy with that Merchant's Cove. I think it's great. I'm happy to play it. I'm looking forward to getting it to the table again. I'm looking forward to diving into the expansion factions, which I have not had the opportunity to play yet, including the Secret Stash, because I haven't had the opportunity to play any of those things as well, from the Kickstarter extras or whatnot. But for those who were expecting something different, it might be that you don't think Merchant's Cove is as heavy or as asymmetric as you might want. Now, if you already backed it, then I recommend trying it and seeing if it's a game for you. If you're searching to get it now on, in retail or whatever, or who knows what, maybe another Kickstarter at some point, I don't know what their plans are. But then I would just caution that while I am thoroughly enjoying Merchant's Cove, it is not the same as Root. It's not the same as another asymmetric game. This is a medium, perhaps leaning towards lighter Euro game that does an excellent job for the playtime, but doesn't have as much choice or complexity as I potentially wanted from it. As far as my final thoughts on Merchant's Cove, to me it's a 4 to 5. I am really enjoying this game. I think that the puzzles presented are compelling enough to dive into those first times and whatnot, and then come back to later. I do not think the game is that heavy, but I think it is light and accessible, and it gives me things to do, and it gives me variability, and it does so in a beautifully packaged engine. For myself, if I could change one thing, like I said already, it would be the way that the individual players and factions interwove with the main board. I want more options. I don't want to be just shoved down a river of just produce more goods better than other people. That's all that you're doing on your board. It's all you're doing on your engine, is you're manipulating or managing the resource of time, trying to use that to most efficiently generate widget X better than someone else. Give me a little more agency. Give me manipulation of the customers. Give me manipulation of the guild halls. Give me manipulation of anything, of something else, so that I have some degree of agency rather than just doing one thing and just min-max my way better than other people. That's going to be Merchant's Cove, a game that is not what I expected, but I'm thoroughly enjoying despite that. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, have a good one.